The morning Texas sun streams through my Austin office windows as I trace my finger across the profit margins for my crown jewel property, a $1.2 million lakefront villa on Lake Travis that represents 8 years of 16-hour days building my real estate empire from nothing. 6 properties, all performing beautifully, all paid for with sacrifices most people would never make, while my sister Senna got college-funded cars, bought mistakes forgiven by parents who always expected me to be the responsible fixer. My phone buzzes with her honey-sweet text, that familiar tone I've known since childhood, masking whatever favor she's about to ask. "Hey, big sis. Knox and I were wondering if we could rent your gorgeous lake house for a few months while we figure things out, family rate, of course." I stare at the message, remembering how she perfected those tears that always got her everything, while I worked 3 jobs to pay for my own education. But she's family, and family helps family, right? Little do I know that agreeing to $3,800 a month, $1,200 below market value, will lead to discovering my custom stone fireplace on an illegal Airbnb listing. 3 months later, my sister earning $450 a night from strangers while owing me $7,600 in unpaid rent and coaching 8-year-old Indy to cry on camera about the mean aunt who cares more about money than family. But that morning, sitting in my office with quarterly reports spread across my mahogany desk, all I see is an opportunity to finally help my sister the way our parents always helped her. I picture Senna as a child, golden hair catching sunlight as she practiced her tears in the mirror. Our parents always melted for those tears. While I worked 3 jobs to pay for college, Senna's education was fully funded. While I bought my first car with money earned cleaning offices at dawn, she got a brand new Honda for her 16th birthday. The resentment is old and familiar, but so is the love. She's still my sister. Still the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. "What kind of timeline are we talking about?" I ask, already knowing I'll say yes. Her relief is audible. "Oh, Aurelia, thank you for even considering it. Maybe 3 to 4 months. Knox's lease here ends in July, so we could start July 1st if that works. And of course we'd pay rent. I'm not asking for charity." The market rate versus family rate war wages in my head for exactly 3 seconds. $3,800 a month. That's fair, for the family covers my costs plus a little profit. The words leave my mouth before I can overthink them. The silence stretches so long I wonder if the call dropped. Then Senna's voice comes back thick with tears. "Aurelia, I can't tell you what this means. Knox has been so stressed about finding the right environment to grow his business, and the kids, they'll love being by the water. Indy's been asking about swimming lessons. We can draw up a simple lease agreement. First month's rent, upfront standard security deposit. I'll have my attorney draft something clean and straightforward. You're incredible. Seriously, I don't know what we'd do without you. I promise we'll take perfect care of the place. It means everything to us." After we hang up, I sit in the quiet office feeling that warm glow that comes from helping my family. The lake house has been just an investment property for me, something that generates income while I live in my practical downtown condo. But maybe it's time it became something more. A place where family memories get made. I pull up the property management software and block out the dates marking the lake house as unavailable for other renters. The decision feels right, generous, but not stupid. Senna sounded genuinely grateful, not entitled. "Knox is responsible, hardworking. The kids are sweet." My phone pings with a text from Senna. Already sent Knox the good news. He's literally crying happy tears. "Thank you for believing in us." I screenshot the message and save it, then spend the rest of the afternoon reviewing lease templates. Family business should still be business, clean and professional. But as I work, I can't shake the feeling that I'm setting something in motion that I don't fully understand. The hawk outside my window has disappeared, leaving only empty sky and the promise of summer storms rolling in from the west. The first month passes like a dream. Senna sends daily updates from the lake house, photos of Knox setting up his design studio in the sunroom, pictures of Indian River splashing in the shallow end of the cove. The payments arrived right on schedule, $3,800, deposited into my business account on July 1st, along with a thank you card from the kids with crayon drawings of fish and boats. I should feel completely satisfied, but there's a nagging voice in my head that sounds suspiciously like my best friend Briar. "You're too soft in business," she'd warned me over drinks last month. Family or not, money changes everything. Still, the photos Senna posts to Instagram are postcard perfect. Knox looks relaxed and creative working on his laptop with the lake sparkling behind him. The kids are tanned and happy building sandcastles on the private beach. This is what the lake house was meant for, I tell myself. Not just generating income, but creating joy. August 1st comes and goes. No payment. I waited 3 days, assuming Knox's client payments might be running late. Freelance work has its rhythms, its unpredictable cash flow. On August 6th, the money finally appeared in my account, along with a quick text from Senna. "Sorry for the delay. Knox's biggest client held up payment on a major rebranding project. You know how corporate bureaucracy can be. I do know. I've been there waiting on checks that determine whether you make rent or not." The understanding comes easily wrapped in memories of my own lean years building this business. But Mrs. Rivera called that afternoon. She's lived next door to the lake house for 15 years, a retired nurse with the sharp eyes that come from decades of caring for people. "I hope you don't mind me calling, dear, but there's been quite a bit more activity over at your place lately." Activity. Oh, just more cars coming and going, especially in the evenings and weekends. Not complaining, mind you, just unusual for such a quiet spot. Your renters seem lovely, very friendly when I wave. I thank Mrs. Rivera and make a mental note to check in with Senna. Knox is probably networking meeting with potential clients. Austin's creative community is tight-knit, built on relationships and referrals. It makes sense that he'd be entertaining more than usual. When I call Senna that evening, her voice has an edge I don't recognize. "Is there a problem with the house?" She sounds almost defensive before I've even explained why I'm calling. Not at all. Mrs. Rivera just mentioned more visitors than usual. I wanted to make sure everything's going smoothly. Knox has been networking like crazy. You know how the music scene is here, everyone knows everyone. He's been having friends over to discuss collaborations, maybe forming some kind of creative collective. We're building community, Aurelia. Isn't that what you wanted when you decided to trust us with this place? The words sting because they're not entirely wrong. I did want the lake house to be more than just a rental property, but something in Senna's tone feels off, like she's performing a script rather than having a conversation. Just remember the noise ordinances around the lake. The neighbors have been there a long time. Of course, we respect everyone around us. I can't believe you're already getting complaints about us. She hangs up before I can explain that Mrs. Rivera wasn't complaining, just observing. I stare at my phone, feeling the first crack in my certainty about this arrangement. Late August brings another delayed payment 8 days past due this time. Senna's explanation comes via text message instead of a phone call. Knox dealing with difficult client dispute payment processing delayed. Should clear up by Friday. I scroll through Senna's Instagram while I wait for Friday's payment. The photos from the lake house continue, but now I notice details that escaped me before. Expensive dinners at Austin's trendiest restaurants, designer clothes for the kids, a new paddleboard that costs more than most people's monthly car payment. When I comment on the paddleboard photo asking where they found such a beautiful one, Senna's response is immediate and sharp. Can't I enjoy one nice thing without judgment? Knox worked extra hours for that. The payment arrives Friday as promised, but the exchange leaves me unsettled. I find myself studying each Instagram post like a detective looking for clues about my sister's financial situation. The math doesn't quite add up, but then again, freelance income can be unpredictable. Maybe Knox landed a bigger project than usual. Briar meets me for lunch at our usual spot downtown, taking one look at my face and ordering wine instead of iced tea. "Talk to me," she says. "What's eating you?" I explain about the delayed payments, the increased activity at the lake house, Senna's defensive responses. Even as I say it out loud, it sounds like paranoia. Too late payments don't make a crisis, especially from a family going through a transition. Your instincts are usually spot on, Briar says carefully. She's been my friend since law school, the one who talked me through my first property purchase and every major business decision since. What does your gut tell you? That I'm being unfair to Senna? That I'm looking for problems because I've never been the favored child, and some part of me expects her to fail. But what if you're not? What if you're seeing something real? I don't have an answer for that. So I changed the subject to Briar's latest case, a messy divorce involving hidden assets and cryptocurrency. But her question follows me home, settling in my chest like a stone I can't cough up. That night I dreamt about the lake house. In the dream, it's full of strangers, people I've never met using my furniture, sleeping in my beds. When I try to ask them to leave, they can't hear me. My voice makes no sound at all. September 1st arrives without a payment. September 5th, then 10th. Each day I check my bank account, willing the numbers to change. Finally, on September 11th, I can't wait any longer. Senna's phone rings 4 times before she answers, and when she does, her voice is thick with tears. "Oh, Aurelia, I'm so glad you called. I was trying to figure out how to tell you what's happening." My heart sinks. What's wrong? Knox's biggest client, the one I told you about, they defaulted on their contract. $12,000 just gone, and we were counting on that money. Knox has been trying to collect through lawyers, but it could take months. The kids just started school here, they're finally settled, and I don't know what we're going to do. The sob in her voice sounds genuine, raw with desperation. I remember my own early business days, the clients who disappeared without paying, the nights I lay awake, calculating how long I could survive on savings. "How bad is it?" I asked gently. "Bad. We're looking at other options, but everything takes time. I can't uproot the kids again, Aurelia. Indy finally has friends at school. River is in this amazing art program. If we have to leave now..." She doesn't finish the sentence, but she doesn't need to. The implication hangs between us like a weapon. If I demand rent, I'm the evil sister who destroys children's happiness over money. "We'll figure something out," I say, hating how automatic the words are. The people-pleasing instinct that's governed our relationship since childhood kicks in before my business sense can intervene. "Thank you. God, thank you. I knew you'd understand. Knox is exploring some short-term income options, and I'm looking into freelance writing work. We just need a little time." After we hang up, I sit in my home office staring at the lake property listing I've been casually browsing. $900 a night for comparable lakefront rentals during peak fall season. I've turned down 3 booking requests this month, trusting that family comes first. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. Instead of closing my laptop, I open Airbnb and search Lake Travis vacation rentals just to see what comparable properties are charging. The listing that pops up third in the results makes my blood freeze. Lakeside Paradise Retreat. 4 bedrooms, private dock, stunning sunsets. The cover photo shows a familiar living room with the custom stone fireplace I personally selected 3 years ago. My living room, my fireplace, my lake house. My hands shake as I click through the photos. Every room, every angle, every piece of furniture I carefully chose. The listing describes amenities I know by heart because I installed them. Private dock, professional kitchen, luxury linens, stunning lake views. $450 per night. Available dates going back to July 15th, just 2 weeks after Senna and Knox moved in. The reviews are glowing 5 stars across the board. Guests praising the beautiful home, the responsive host, the amazing experience. 27 reviews. I count them twice, my business brain automatically calculating revenue, while my personal heart crumbles. If they've been booked even half the available nights since mid-July, they've made more money subletting my house than I charged them in rent. I screenshot everything with trembling fingers, my emotions cycling between rage and disbelief. The listing shows availability for the next month, open calendar slots, asking $450 per night for a house I'm letting them use for $3,800 per month. The phone call happens before I can think it through. Senna answers on the first ring, voice bright and cheerful, until she realizes it's me. "I'm looking at an Airbnb listing for my lake house," I say without preamble. "Want to explain that?" The silence stretches so long I wonder if she's hung up. Then a strangled laugh. "What are you talking about? Lakeside Paradise Retreat? 4 bedrooms, private dock. 27 5-star reviews since July. Ring any bells, Aurelia? I have no idea what you're talking about. Are you sure it's the same house?" There are lots of properties on Lake Travis. I'm looking at a photo of my stone fireplace, Senna, the one with the custom mantel I had built. Unless there's another house with the exact same everything, this is my property being rented without my knowledge or permission. The crying starts again, but this time it sounds different. Calculated. "Oh God, Aurelia, I can explain. Knox set that up without telling me. When the client didn't pay, he panicked and thought maybe we could make a little extra money to cover rent. I told him to take it down, but you know how stubborn he can be. Knox set up a professional listing with professional photos and managed bookings for 2 months without you knowing. Her voice gets smaller. I found out last week. We've been fighting about it constantly. That's why I've been so stressed, why I could barely handle calling you about the rent. I was trying to figure out how to tell you. How much have you made, Senna? I don't know exactly. Knox handles all that. Maybe enough to cover what we owe you, maybe a little more. Look, we'll shut it down immediately and pay you everything. We never meant for this to happen. But even as she speaks, I'm scrolling through the calendar, seeing bookings extending into October and November. Future reservations already paid for money, already collected for dates when they're supposed to be paying me rent. This wasn't panic, Senna. This was planned. You've been running a business out of my house for 2 weeks after you moved in. The line goes quiet, except for her breathing. When she speaks again, the tears are gone, replaced by something harder. We're desperate, Aurelia. Knox's client screwed us over. We have 2 kids to think about, and yes, we found a way to survive. I'm sorry we didn't tell you, but what choice did we have? The choice to be honest with me. The choice to ask permission. The choice to tell me the truth instead of lying about delayed client payments. We're family, she says, and her voice carries the weight of every childhood argument every time our parents took her side over mine. We help each other. That's what family does. After she hangs up, I sit in the growing darkness of my office, staring at the Airbnb listing that's earning my sister more money than she's paying me. The reviews praise her hospitality, her attention to detail, her beautiful home. Her beautiful home. The words echo in my head as I close my laptop and pour myself a glass of wine I don't really want. For the first time since July, I'm not sure if I know my sister at all. I drive to the lake house at dawn on September 12th, my coffee growing cold in the cup holder as I rehearse conversations I'll probably never have the courage to start. The morning is crisp with the promise of autumn lake fog hanging low over the water like secrets nobody wants to acknowledge. Knox's truck is in the driveway, back doors wide open. He's loading my wine collection into plastic storage bins, the bottles I spent years carefully selecting, including the 2018 Burgundy that cost me $400 and was supposed to age another decade. He freezes when he sees me a bottle of my favorite Pinot Noir halfway to the bin. Morning, Aurelia. Just doing some organizing. You know how wine storage can be tricky in lake humidity. The lie comes so easily I almost admire its smoothness. In lake humidity. Right. Where exactly are you storing my wine collection? His face goes through several expressions before settling on embarrassed resignation. Just temporarily at a friend's place. Climate-controlled storage. Safer for the investment value. Knox has always been a terrible liar, which is probably why Senna handles most of their joint deceptions. I step past him into the house and immediately see what's missing. The custom dining table that took me 3 months to find, handcrafted by a local artisan. The vintage landscape paintings I bought at an estate sale in San Antonio. The 75-inch television that was my housewarming gift to myself. Knox follows me inside his footsteps, heavy with guilt. Look, I can explain everything. Please do. The living room is a shell of what I left it. Furniture rearranged to hide empty spaces, cheap replacements trying to fill gaps where expensive pieces used to live. But what stops me cold is the scene in the master bedroom. Senna is live on Instagram, sitting cross-legged on my bed with professional ring lights creating perfect ambiance. Her voice is warm and intimate as she talks to her 50,000 followers about morning routines in my lake house sanctuary. And this is where I start every day with gratitude practice. There's something so healing about waking up to water views, you know. This space just radiates peace and intention. She's wearing a silk robe I've never seen before, her hair styled like she's stepped off a magazine cover. Behind her, the room is staged like a boutique hotel, every detail calculated for maximum visual impact. I clear my throat. Senna spins around, face going white, as she quickly ends the stream. Just saying good morning to friends, she stammers. Friends who think this is your house. Knox fills the doorway behind me, his presence making the room feel smaller. We need to talk, I say. They try to explain in overlapping voices, each story contradicting the last. Knox admits to selling furniture to pay gambling debts I never knew existed. $25,000 lost to online sports betting over 6 months' money that should have gone to their own rent and bills. Loan sharks are calling daily now, Knox says, his voice shaking. These aren't people you mess around with. Senna reveals the Airbnb operation started July 15th, just 2 weeks after moving in. We've made about $15,000 so far, she says defensively. Which sounds like a lot, but after Airbnb fees and expenses, it's barely covering our basic costs. Barely covering costs. I check the Airbnb listing on my phone, scrolling through 27 glowing reviews. My business brain calculates automatically 50 nights booked at $450 per night equals $22,500 in gross revenue. Even with Airbnb's fees, they've cleared roughly $18,000. You've made $18,000 renting my house while owing me $7,600 in rent, I say slowly. Senna's defensive mask slips. Look, we were going to pay you back everything. This isn't permanent, it's survival. Knox's client screwed us over, we have kids to think about, and yes, we found a way to make it work. If you charged us a reasonable family rate instead of treating this like some corporate transaction, we wouldn't need supplemental income. Reasonable family rate. The words hit like a slap. I'm charging you $1,200 under market value, and you're earning more from subletting than most people make at full-time jobs. Knox steps between us, hands raised like he's breaking up a fight. This is my fault, he says. The gambling, the debt-selling stuff. Senna was trying to help fix my mistakes. By lying to me for months. We were going to tell you, Senna insists. Once we got caught up and figured everything out, we never meant for it to go this long. I pull up the Airbnb calendar on my phone, showing them bookings extending through November. You have reservations 2 months from now. Future guests who've already paid deposits. This isn't emergency survival, it's a business plan. The room fills with tense silence. Through the windows, I can see Mrs. Rivera watering her garden, probably wondering about all the raised voices carrying across the water. Finally, Senna speaks, her voice small and tired. What do you want us to do, Aurelia? We can't exactly give Knox's gambling money back. The furniture is already sold. The Airbnb guests have paid deposits we've already spent on rent and food and keeping our kids clothed. For the first time, I hear something like genuine desperation underneath her anger. But I also hear something else, the assumption that I'll fix this for them the way I've been fixing Senna's problems since we were children. I want honesty, I say. I want my $7,600 in back rent. I want compensation for the stolen furniture. And I want you to honor the lease we both signed, which means no subletting without written permission. Senna stands up from the bed, silk robe flowing around her like armor. And if we can't do all that, then we'll have to discuss other options. She stares at me for a long moment, and I see her calculating, weighing options, planning her next move. This is the sister I'd forgotten existed, the one who always found a way to get what she wanted, no matter who got hurt in the process. You'd really evict your own family over money, she asks, and there's something almost curious in her voice, like she's conducting an experiment. I'd really expect my family to honor their commitments and treat me with basic respect. But as I drive back to Austin an hour later, leaving them to sort through the wreckage of their explanations, I'm not sure if I believe my own words or if I'm just trying to convince myself I have the strength to follow through. By 6 p.m., my phone had exploded. 8 missed calls from various family members, 12 text messages, and 3 voicemails I'm afraid to listen to. Senna's emergency family broadcast has reached everyone from Houston to Dallas, painting me as the villain in a story I barely recognize. The first call comes from our mother at exactly 6:15. Cordelia's voice carries that particular blend of disappointment and authority she's perfected over 35 years of parenting. Aurelia Marie Hawthorne. I cannot believe what Senna just told me. You're evicting your sister and those precious children over a rental dispute. I try to explain about the unauthorized subletting, the stolen furniture, the months of lies. But Cordelia steamrolls over every word. Families help each other, she says, her voice rising with each syllable. Blood means something in this family, even if you seem to have forgotten that. Those children need stability, not some corporate landlord treating them like strangers. I'm not a corporate landlord. I'm expecting basic honesty and the rent we agreed on. Oh, so now we're a nickel and diming family. The same sister who worked 3 jobs to pay for college while Senna got everything handed to her. The same daughter who never asked for help, never needed anyone, missed completely self-sufficient. Now you want to punish Senna for having normal human struggles. The conversation spirals from there, hitting every sensitive spot from our childhood. I'm being cold, calculating, punishing Senna for not being as naturally business-minded as me. By the time Cordelia hangs up, promising to drive to Austin tomorrow to talk sense into me, I feel like I'm 15 again, standing in our kitchen while everyone explains why Senna's needs matter more than my boundaries. Dad's text is shorter, but somehow worse, disappointed in you. Thought I raised you better than this. Uncle Marcus calls, suggesting a family meeting to work things out peacefully. Cousin Jennifer texts, asking if the rumors about me evicting Senna are actually true. By 9 p.m., the family group chat has devolved into a courtroom where I'm being tried in absentia. The worst part is that some small voice in my head wonders if they're right. Maybe I am being too rigid, too focused on business when I should be focused on family. Maybe successful people have an obligation to absorb other people's mistakes without complaint. Briar shows up at my condo at 10 p.m. with Thai food and wine, taking one look at my face and settling in for a long night. Talk to me, she says, unpacking containers of pad Thai like she's preparing for battle. I explain everything: the Airbnb discovery, the stolen furniture, Knox's gambling addiction, the $18,000 in revenue they've generated while claiming poverty. Briar listens without interrupting, occasionally making notes on her legal pad. When I finish, she's quiet for a long time. Finally, they've committed multiple breaches of contract theft and probably fraud. Any other tenant would have been evicted weeks ago. But they're not any other tenant. They're family. Exactly. Which makes it worse, not better. They exploited your trust and relationship to commit crimes they'd never get away with as strangers. My phone buzzes with another text from Senna. Please call me. Let's work this out like adults. When I call, she sounds calmer, more in control. I'm sorry about the family drama, she says. I was emotional and probably said things wrong when I called Mom. Probably said things wrong. Like I was evicting them over money when the real issue is months of deception and theft. Look, we both made mistakes here. Maybe I should have told you about Airbnb sooner, but you have to understand our position. Knox's gambling is a disease, not a choice. We were trying to dig out of a hole while keeping our kids stable. What about my position, Senna? What about the fact that I trusted you with my most valuable asset, and you've been lying to me since day one? She sighs like I'm being deliberately obtuse. We're family, Aurelia. We help each other through rough patches. That's what love looks like in the real world, not just when it's convenient. Love looks like honesty. It looks like respecting boundaries and honoring commitments. Is that really what you want to tell those kids? That Aunt Aurelia chose business profits over keeping them housed? The guilt hits exactly where she aims it. Indy with her gap-toothed smile teaching me to skip rocks the last time I visited. River showing me his crayon drawings of dinosaurs. The thought of them homeless because of my decision makes my chest tight. But then I remember Knox loading my wine collection into bins, Senna performing her morning routine for Instagram followers in my master bedroom, the casual way they've treated my property like their personal ATM. What I want to tell them is that actions have consequences, I say finally. That when you make promises, you keep them. That family means being trustworthy, not just demanding trust. The silence stretches until I wonder if she's hung up. When she speaks again, her voice is ice cold. You know what, Aurelia, do what you have to do. But don't expect this family to forget how you chose money over blood when your sister needed you most. After she hangs up, I sit in my quiet condo, looking out at the Austin skyline, city lights twinkling like distant stars. Briar refills my wine glass and settles beside me on the couch. Boundaries feel like betrayal when you've never had them before, she says gently. Your family trained you to believe that love means accepting whatever treatment people give you. But that's not love, Aurelia. That's enabling. I know she's right. But knowing and feeling are different countries, and I'm still trying to find the bridge between them as the city settles into sleep around us. Within 24 hours, Senna transforms from my lying sister into America's sweetheart victim. Her Instagram stories unfold like a carefully scripted tragedy, each post more heartbreaking than the last. I watch in horrified fascination as she performs her pain for 50,000 followers who eat up every manufactured tear. The first video shows her sitting on my lake house deck, morning light catching the tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. When family turns on you in your darkest hour, she whispers to the camera voice, breaking at precisely the right moments. I never thought my own sister would choose money over her nieces and nephew. Comments flood in immediately. Stay strong, Mama. Blood over everything. Your sister sounds heartless. Within hours, the video has 20,000 views and climbing. The second installment features Indy and River looking appropriately forlorn as Senna packs their belongings. Both children have been coached well, their sad expressions picture perfect as they clutch stuffed animals like refugees fleeing disaster. My babies don't understand why Aunt Aurelia doesn't want them anymore, Senna explains to her growing audience. My phone starts buzzing with notifications as acquaintances from my professional network begin seeing the posts. Austin's real estate community is tight-knit, and several colleagues text asking if everything's okay. The whispers start immediately. Did you see Aurelia Hawthorne's family drama? Apparently she's evicting her sister and kids. Pretty cold even for business. By noon, the story has been picked up by local mommy blogger accounts. Senna carefully edits her narrative, omitting any mention of unauthorized subletting stolen furniture or Knox's gambling debts. Her version focuses purely on the evil corporate sister choosing profit over family love, complete with carefully curated photos of the children looking displaced and heartbroken. I try calling Senna directly, but she lets it go to voicemail. When I show up at the lake house that afternoon, I find her in the middle of filming another segment this time, with professional ring lights and a script written on index cards scattered across my coffee table. Remember to cry when you talk about being homeless, she's telling Indy, who nods solemnly, like she's rehearsing for a school play. And River, when I ask about Aunt Aurelia, you look sad and say you don't understand why she's being mean. The children practice their lines while Knox sets up camera angles. It's a full production complete with makeup touch-ups and multiple takes to get the perfect shot of childhood innocence being crushed by adult greed. When Senna notices me standing in the doorway, she doesn't even have the grace to look embarrassed. We're just documenting our experience, she says, as if coaching children to lie on camera is somehow therapeutic rather than manipulative. You're teaching them that dishonesty gets rewarded when you perform it well enough. I'm teaching them that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even when powerful people try to silence you. The irony is staggering, but pointing it out would require acknowledging facts she's already decided to ignore. Instead, I watch my 8-year-old niece practice crying on command while my 4-year-old nephew learns to associate my name with the word mean. Knox pulls me aside while Senna films her closing monologue. I feel sick about all this, he admits quietly. The Instagram thing, the coaching, all of it. But if I speak up, she'll destroy me. She knows about the gambling debts the people I owe money to. She's got ammunition for days. So you're going to let her exploit your children to save yourself. He looks away, shame written across his features like a map of bad decisions. I'm trying to get into rehab, trying to fix the gambling thing. But right now, keeping Senna happy is the only thing standing between me and some very dangerous people. The latest Instagram video goes live at 6 p.m., perfectly timed for maximum engagement. This one shows Senna breaking down as she explains how her successful sister is forcing them out, despite their desperate circumstances. The performance is Oscar-worthy, complete with strategic pauses and trembling hands. But something unexpected happens in the comments section. Sharp-eyed viewers start asking questions that Senna didn't anticipate. Wait, didn't you post about expensive dinners last week, someone writes? That paddleboard in your earlier posts costs like $1,500. Another viewer points out inconsistencies in the timeline, asking how they can afford luxury items while claiming poverty. Most damaging of all, Knox appears in the background of a live stream, talking to someone off camera. All that Airbnb money we've been making should cover next month's expenses, he says, not realizing his voice is being broadcast to 2,000 viewers. The comments explode. Airbnb money. What? Airbnb money. I thought you said you couldn't afford rent. Senna tries to delete the stream, but dozens of viewers have already recorded it. Screenshots circulate through the comment threads as followers begin questioning the narrative they've been fed. Some defend Senna, insisting the clips are taken out of context. Others demand explanations for the growing list of contradictions. My business phone rings constantly now. Half the calls are from colleagues expressing concern about my reputation, the other half from potential investors who've heard rumors about my family drama and want reassurance that I'm still professional enough to handle their money. The most painful call comes from Janet Morrison, a mentor who helped me buy my first investment property. Aurelia Honey. I don't know what's going on with your family situation, but you need to control this narrative before it destroys everything you've built. I try explaining the truth, but even Janet sounds skeptical. Social media moves faster than facts, she warns. Whatever's really happening, that girl is winning the public relations war while you're losing clients. That evening, I drive back to the lake house one more time, hoping to have a rational conversation away from cameras and coached children. I find Senna editing video footage on her laptop, while the kids watch cartoons their earlier performances already forgotten in favor of juice boxes and goldfish crackers. We need to talk, I say, gesturing toward the deck where we can speak privately. Senna follows me outside, but she's already on the defensive. If you're here to threaten me again, save your breath. The whole world knows what kind of person you really are now. The whole world knows a fictional version of events that you've carefully constructed to hide the fact that you've been stealing from me for months. She laughs, a bitter sound that carries across the water. Stealing, I've been trying to survive while my sister treats me like a tenant instead of family. Every successful woman needs someone to look down on, I guess. I've bent over backwards to help you, Senna. Below-market rent patients with late payments, understanding about Knox's situation. The only thing I asked for was honesty. Honesty doesn't pay bills or keep kids housed. Maybe if you lived in the real world instead of your ivory tower, you'd understand that sometimes good people have to make hard choices. The conversation circles back to the same arguments, the same justifications, the same refusal to acknowledge basic facts. As I drive home through the Austin traffic, I realize that Senna isn't interested in solving this problem. She's interested in winning, and she's willing to sacrifice our relationship, her children's integrity, and my reputation to do it. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Saw your sister's videos. Some of us know there's always two sides to every story. Hang in there. It's a small kindness in an ocean of judgment, but somehow it's enough to remind me that truth doesn't disappear just because lies get more attention. Sage Martinez's law office overlooks downtown Austin from the 23rd floor, all glass and steel efficiency that matches her reputation as the toughest real estate attorney in the city. She's been my legal counsel for 3 years, handling everything from contract disputes to property acquisitions with the kind of sharp intelligence that makes opposing lawyers nervous. Texas eviction law is straightforward but time-consuming, she explains, spreading documents across her conference table like battle plans. Formal 30-day notice, then court filing if they don't comply. Given their breach of lease terms and unauthorized subletting, you have a strong case but expect them to fight it. I slide a thick folder across the table, months of careful documentation that Breyer helped me organize. Bank records showing missed payments, screenshots of the Airbnb listing with timestamps, photos of missing furniture with original purchase receipts, witness statements from Mrs. Rivera detailing the excessive traffic patterns that violated neighborhood covenants. This is excellent work, Sage says, flipping through the evidence. Most landlords don't document this thoroughly. Your sister won't be able to claim ignorance or good faith with this paper trail. She calls in Orion Kim, the property inspector who's worked with my company since I bought my first rental. Orion's report is devastating in its thoroughness. Cracked marble countertop in the kitchen from what appears to be party damage, estimated repair cost $3,500. Hardwood floors throughout the main living area stained with alcohol and water damage, requiring refinishing at $4,000. Dock furniture broken and partially missing replacement cost $1,000. The photos tell the story my sister's Instagram posts carefully avoided. Burn marks on my custom dining table, gouges in the walls from furniture being moved repeatedly, bathroom fixtures damaged from overuse. The house I spent years perfecting has been systematically destroyed by people who treated it like a disposable commodity. Total estimated repairs run $8,500, not including the value of stolen furniture and lost rental income from their unauthorized Airbnb operation. Sage calculates that I'm looking at damages exceeding $30,000, assuming I can prove the full extent of their fraudulent subletting. As we work through the legal strategy, my phone buzzes constantly with notifications I'm learning to ignore. The family pressure campaign has intensified since yesterday's Instagram revelations, with relatives choosing sides like we're heading toward civil war rather than a simple eviction. Knox contacts me directly for the first time in weeks, his voice shaking as he admits the full scope of his gambling addiction. $25,000 lost over 6 months, he confesses. Sports betting, online poker, even some cryptocurrency speculation that went wrong. The people I owe money to aren't patient types, Aurelia. They've been calling every day, sometimes showing up at places I frequent. He explains that Senna knew about the debts from the beginning, that the lake house scheme was as much her idea as his. She said we deserved a cut of the profits since you were basically getting free property management, he admits. Made it sound like we were doing you a favor by handling bookings and cleanings. The revelation that Senna orchestrated the deception from day one shouldn't surprise me, but it still hits like a physical blow. Every tearful phone call about Knox's client problems, every explanation about delayed payments, every guilt trip about family loyalty was carefully calculated manipulation designed to buy time while they extracted maximum profit from my property. Why are you telling me this now? I ask. Because I'm trying to get into a residential gambling program, and they require complete honesty about the damage I've caused. Also because Senna's talking about filing false reports claiming you're harassing us, maybe even suggesting child endangerment because you're trying to make kids homeless. My blood runs cold. Child endangerment. She's been researching what happens to families who get evicted, looking for angles that might get you in legal trouble. I think she's planning to claim the eviction is retaliatory because you found out about the gambling and are trying to punish us for Knox's addiction. I share this information with Sage, who immediately begins preparing counter-documentation. False reports are serious business, she warns. If your sister files fraudulent claims with Child Protective Services or law enforcement, she could face criminal charges herself. That afternoon, I drive to the lake house one final time before filing the formal eviction notice. I need to see the damage with my own eyes to prepare myself for what recovery will cost both financially and emotionally. Mrs. Rivera waves me over as I park in the driveway. I've been keeping a log like you asked, dear, she says, handing me a small notebook filled with her careful handwriting. 47 different vehicles in the past 10 weeks, some staying overnight, others just for a few hours. Many of them had out-of-state plates, which seemed odd for family friends. Her documentation proves the systematic nature of Senna's operation. This wasn't desperate survival, it was a carefully planned business that treated my home like a hotel while maintaining the fiction of a struggling family just trying to get by. Inside the house, I walk through rooms that no longer feel like mine. Every surface shows evidence of strangers living temporarily in spaces I designed for permanence. The guest bathroom has hotel amenities, tiny bottles of shampoo and soap that scream short-term rental. The kitchen cabinets are stocked with cheap dishes to replace the expensive ones that have disappeared. In the master bedroom, I find Senna's ring light setup still positioned for optimal filming angles. Index cards with talking points scattered across my dresser. Make them feel sorry for the kids. Emphasize how successful she is versus our struggles. Remember to mention childhood favoritism. The calculated nature of her campaign becomes clear as I read through her strategic notes. This isn't emotional desperation, it's deliberate character assassination designed to destroy my reputation while positioning herself as the innocent victim of family greed. Sage files the formal 30-day eviction notice on September 25th, giving them until October 25th to vacate the premises. The document is served by a professional process server who finds Senna in the middle of filming another Instagram video about family betrayal and corporate heartlessness. She films the entire service, turning legal documentation into content for her growing audience of supporters. But for the first time since this started, I feel something other than guilt and confusion. I feel the quiet strength that comes from knowing you're standing on solid ground, even when everyone else insists you're the one who's wrong. The process server hands Senna the eviction notice at exactly 10 a.m. on September 25th, and she immediately transforms the moment into must-see social media content. Her phone captures everything the official documents, her tears of disbelief, the legal language that she reads aloud with a trembling voice like she's delivering Shakespeare. "My sister is destroying our family over money," she announces to her live audience, voice breaking on cue. She's using the legal system to terrorize children because she values profit over love. The video gains 200,000 views in the first 6 hours, shared across mommy blogs and family drama accounts with captions like "Evil sister evicts family with kids" and "Corporate greed versus family loyalty." Comment sections explode with outrage, sympathy, and increasingly sharp questions from viewers who've been following the story closely enough to notice inconsistencies. But Senna makes a crucial mistake during the live stream. Knox appears in the background, unaware he's being filmed, talking loudly on his phone about upcoming Airbnb bookings. "We've got the lake house booked solid through November," he says clearly. "All that revenue should cover our moving expenses and first month's rent somewhere new." The comment section erupts immediately. "Wait, I thought they couldn't afford rent," someone writes. "Why do they have Airbnb bookings if they're getting evicted?" Another viewer posts, "This whole sob story is fake. They're making money off this house while playing victims." Senna tries to end the stream quickly, but it's too late. Screen recordings circulate within minutes, and suddenly her narrative has a gaping hole that can't be explained away with tears and family loyalty speeches. The revelation that they've been profiting from unauthorized subletting while claiming poverty exposes the manipulation at the heart of her entire campaign. My business phone rings non-stop as colleagues who initially questioned my character begin calling with apologies and support. Jennifer Walsh from the Austin Real Estate Women's Association leaves a voicemail that nearly makes me cry. "Aurelia, I owe you an apology. I should have known there was more to this story. Anyone who's worked with you knows your integrity is beyond question. But the family pressure reaches nuclear levels. Mom arrives at my office unannounced, storming past my assistant like a hurricane dressed in Chanel. Her perfectly styled hair and designer handbag can't disguise the fury radiating from every perfectly applied line of makeup. "Aurelia Marie Hawthorne, you stop this legal nonsense right now. Those children have done nothing wrong and you're punishing them for adult problems they don't understand." I try showing her the evidence folder, the same documentation that convinced Sage we have an airtight case. Mom refuses to look at bank records, Airbnb screenshots, or damage assessments. She sweeps the papers off my desk with one dramatic gesture, scattering months of careful documentation across my office floor. "I don't care about your business papers and legal mumbo-jumbo. Family takes care of family, period. You're supposed to be the responsible one, the successful one. That means you help when people are struggling, not kick them when they're down." The conversation spirals into familiar territory, hitting every guilt button installed during 33 years of family programming. I'm being selfish, calculating putting money before blood. According to Mom, my success creates an obligation to absorb other people's failures without complaint or boundaries. After she leaves, promising to drive straight to the lake house to comfort poor Senna and those precious children, I sit among the scattered papers, feeling like I'm drowning in other people's expectations of who I should be. Dad's call comes that evening, his voice heavy with disappointment. I haven't heard since I was caught smoking behind the garage at 16. "I never thought I'd raised a daughter who would put her own sister and those babies out on the street over money. She's not being put out over money, Dad. She's being evicted for stealing from me, lying to me for months, and turning my property into an unauthorized business while claiming she couldn't afford rent." But he's already made up his mind, choosing the version of reality that fits his image of Senna as the golden child who needs protection, and me as the cold, successful daughter who should solve everyone else's problems without complaint. The surprise comes from an unexpected source. Mrs. Rivera calls that evening with information that changes everything. "I hope you don't mind me sharing this, dear, but I witnessed something today that I think you should know about." She explains that she overheard Senna coaching the children again this time, preparing them for what sounded like official interviews. "Remember, Aunt Aurelia is the mean one who doesn't want you to have a house," Senna told Indy. "If anyone asks you, tell them you're scared of being homeless and don't understand why she's being so cruel." The coaching session included specific instructions about what to say if Child Protective Services got involved, how to emphasize their fear and confusion, how to make anyone listening believe that I was systematically traumatizing children for financial gain. Mrs. Rivera recorded part of the conversation on her phone. She tells me quietly, "I know it's not quite legal, but I was worried about those little ones being taught to lie like that. It didn't seem right." The recording is devastating evidence of child manipulation, proof that Senna is willing to weaponize her own children's emotional welfare to win a legal battle. Sage listens to the audio file with growing amazement, then immediately files supplementary documentation with the court showing the systematic nature of the fraud and manipulation. "This changes everything," she tells me. "Child coaching for legal proceedings is serious business. No judge wants to see kids being used as props in adult conflicts." That night, I lie awake thinking about Indy practicing her scared face in the mirror, River learning to associate my name with the concept of meanness. Senna isn't just stealing my money or damaging my property. She's teaching her children that love means manipulation, that honesty is optional when you want something badly enough, and that family relationships are just another kind of transaction where the best performer wins. For the first time since this began, my resolve hardens into something unshakable. This isn't about money anymore. It's about stopping a cycle of manipulation that's already destroying the next generation, even if it means accepting that some people will never forgive me for refusing to be their victim. October 15th arrives with autumn clarity 10 days before the eviction deadline and mounting pressure from every direction. Senna's desperation manifests in increasingly dramatic gestures, each one more manipulative than the last. She brings Indy and River to my office during lunch hour, timing their arrival for maximum impact when the business district is full of potential witnesses. The children have been carefully prepared for this performance. Indy wears a dress that's slightly too small, her hair deliberately messy like she's been crying. River clutches a stuffed elephant with one ear, missing the kind of prop that screams poverty and neglect to anyone watching. "Tell Aunt Aurelia you don't want to be homeless babies," Senna whispers loud enough for my assistant and 2 clients in the waiting area to hear clearly. Indy's rehearsed tears are picture perfect as she approaches my desk. "Aunt Aurelia, please don't make us leave our house. We promise to be good." River nods solemnly, his 4-year-old face serious with coached confusion. My heart breaks watching them perform trauma they don't understand for an audience they can't see. But during their carefully scripted plea, Indy makes a mistake that reveals the truth beneath Senna's coaching. "I don't want the guest people to take our beds anymore," she says, looking directly at me with genuine distress. "They make too much noise at night, and Mommy says we can't use the swimming pool when they're here." Senna's face goes white as she realizes what her daughter just revealed. The guest people, the evidence of ongoing Airbnb operations that she's been denying for weeks. River adds his own innocent contribution to the revelation. "Mommy counts the money every morning when the people leave. She puts it in the special box under her bed." I gently explain to the children that Mommy's choices created this situation, not Aunt Aurelia being mean. The lease agreement was broken, trust was violated, and adults have to face consequences when they make bad decisions. Senna quickly ushers them out, but the damage is done. 3 witnesses heard first-hand testimony about ongoing commercial operations in violation of the eviction terms. That afternoon brings news that Knox has finally reached his breaking point. His parents call me directly explaining that he's entered an emergency gambling rehabilitation program after receiving death threats from loan sharks. The people he owes money to aren't interested in payment plans or sob stories. They want cash immediately, or they'll start taking payment in pain. Knox confessed everything to the intake counselors, his mother tells me. The extent of the gambling, the pressure from dangerous people, and yes, the scheme to use your house for revenue while claiming poverty. He feels terrible about lying to you, but Senna convinced him it was temporary until he could pay off the debts. She asks if I'd be willing to provide a character reference for Knox's legal proceedings against the loan sharks, emphasizing that he was coerced into fraudulent behavior by people who threatened violence. I agree, recognizing that Knox is as much Senna's victim as I am, just with different vulnerabilities she could exploit. Mrs. Rivera provides the final piece of crucial evidence, a detailed timeline documenting 47 different vehicles visiting the property over 10 weeks. Her meticulous record-keeping includes license plate numbers, arrival and departure times, and notes about guests carrying luggage or equipment consistent with vacation rentals. This level of commercial activity clearly violates neighborhood covenants and zoning restrictions for residential properties. More importantly, it proves the systematic nature of Senna's operation, demonstrating that this was never about desperate survival, but calculated profit generation, using my property as the foundation. Orion completes his comprehensive damage assessment with photographic evidence that makes me sick to my stomach. The house I spent years perfecting has been systematically destroyed by people who treated it like a disposable commodity rather than someone's carefully crafted investment. The marble countertop I saved for 3 months to afford shows deep cracks from heavy impacts, probably from parties where drunk guests thought it was fun to dance on kitchen surfaces. The hardwood floors I personally selected and had installed bear water stains, alcohol damage, and gouges from furniture being dragged around to accommodate different guest configurations. Most heartbreaking is the dock where I plan to spend quiet mornings reading and watching sunrise over the lake. The custom furniture is broken beyond repair. The railing is loose from apparent attempts to hang hammocks or swings, and there are beer bottles and cigarette butts embedded in the deck boards like archaeological evidence of systematic disrespect. Breyer helps me prepare an additional lawsuit for property damage and stolen items, calculating total recovery costs exceeding $30,000 when lost rental income is included. Your sister turned your investment property into a cash machine while destroying everything that made it valuable, she observes grimly. The family WhatsApp group has become a battlefield with clear lines drawn. Uncle Marcus and Aunt Ruby defend Senna's actions as desperate survival measures, insisting that successful family members have obligations to absorb losses without complaint. Cousin Rebecca and her husband quietly support my position after researching the legal realities of unauthorized subletting and property damage. Most surprising is Cousin Jennifer's evolution from Senna supporter to vocal advocate for my side. She visited the lake house, personally witnessed the damage firsthand, and then spent hours researching the Airbnb reviews and revenue calculations that expose the scope of the fraud. I can't believe we all fell for her victim act, Jennifer posts to the family group. Aurelia is being stolen from, and we're attacking her for trying to protect her investment. This is insane. The responses split cleanly between relatives who prioritize evidence and those who prefer the emotional narrative Senna has constructed. It's painful watching family relationships fracture along lines of logic versus loyalty, but also clarifying to see who values truth over comfortable fiction. That evening, I drove past the lake house one final time, before the eviction deadline, not stopping, but just observing from the road. Cars fill the driveway despite the pending legal action, suggesting that Senna is still operating her illegal business right up until the final moment. Through the windows, I can see strangers moving around in spaces I designed for peace and permanence. My sanctuary has become someone else's commodity, and the people responsible are teaching their children that this kind of exploitation is not just acceptable, but deserving of sympathy when consequences finally arrive. 10 days until eviction, and I've never been more certain that some boundaries are worth defending, regardless of who gets angry about finally encountering limits they can't manipulate their way around. October 23rd brings the family intervention I've been dreading since this nightmare began. They descend on the lake house like an army of guilt-wielding relatives, each one armed with opinions about my character and lectures about family loyalty that conveniently ignore months of theft and deception. Mom orchestrates the gathering with military precision. Dad and Nana Vesper drive down from Dallas. Uncle Marcus flies in from Houston. Aunt Ruby brings her husband Tom for moral support. And various cousins arrive like reinforcements for a battle they've already decided I've lost by choosing business over blood. The staging is pure theater. Senna positions herself in the center of my living room, surrounded by packed boxes and tearful children who've been coached to perfection. Indy sits on her lap looking appropriately traumatized, while River clings to Knox's leg with practiced desperation. Knox appears genuinely broken, his gambling addiction and debt to dangerous people having reduced him to a shell of the confident man who moved into my house 4 months ago. But his presence serves Senna's narrative perfectly, the wounded husband whose mistakes justify her extreme measures to keep the family housed and fed. I arrive with Briar as my witness, and moral support, knowing that facing this tribunal alone would leave me vulnerable to the emotional manipulation that's governed family dynamics since childhood. The battle lines are immediately clear them against me: family loyalty versus cold business principles, love against greed. Uncle Marcus opens with the family's official position. Aurelia, we understand you're upset about the business arrangement, but evicting family over money disputes isn't how we handle problems in this family. Business arrangement. The phrase ignores months of lies, stolen property, unauthorized commercial operations, and systematic destruction of my investment. But pointing out these facts would require acknowledging reality instead of the comfortable fiction they prefer. Senna performs at peak victim level, her voice trembling with practiced emotion as she explains how desperate circumstances forced them into survival mode. Knox's client betrayed us, she sobs. We were drowning financially, and yes, we made some mistakes trying to stay afloat. But we're family. The family forgives mistakes and works together to find solutions. The performance is Oscar-worthy, complete with strategic pauses and tear-timed perfectly for maximum emotional impact. Several relatives nod sympathetically, their faces showing the exact response Senna calculated when she planned this intervention. I present my evidence methodically, the same documentation that convinced Sage we have an airtight legal case. Bank records showing missed payments, Airbnb screenshots proving systematic fraud, photos of property damage, witness statements documenting commercial activity that violates neighborhood covenants and lease terms. Nana Vesper surprises everyone by actually examining the evidence instead of dismissing it outright. At 82 years old, she's seen enough family drama to recognize manipulation when it's performed obviously. I drove over here yesterday and looked at the damage myself. She announces, her voice carrying the authority that comes from being family matriarch for 60 years. The house is destroyed. Furniture missing, floors ruined, kitchen damaged. This isn't about money, it's about being stolen from and lied to for months. Uncle Marcus tries to interrupt, but Nana Vesper shuts him down with a look that could stop traffic. She's the only person in this family who remembers when respect meant something, when promises were kept instead of negotiated after the fact. The turning point comes when she presses Senna about the story, inconsistencies that even family loyalty can't explain away. You claimed poverty while posting photos of expensive dinners and luxury purchases. You said Knox couldn't work while he was clearly managing a full-time illegal rental business. Which story is true? Senna Knox finally breaks under the pressure of direct questioning from someone he can't manipulate or charm. The whole thing was planned from the beginning, he admits, his voice barely audible. Senna said the lake house was practically her inheritance anyway, that Aurelia owed her for all the advantages she'd gotten growing up. The room goes silent as he continues confessing details that destroy Senna's carefully constructed narrative. The gambling debts started small, but when I couldn't hide them anymore, Senna said we could use the house to make money while living rent-free. She researched Airbnb rates, set up the listing, and managed the bookings. I just did what she told me. Senna's mask finally slips completely as she realizes Knox has betrayed her ultimate secret. She turns on him with fury that shocks even the relatives who came prepared to defend her against my alleged greed. "You've destroyed everything we built here with your weakness," she screams. "All you had to do was keep your mouth shut and let me handle the family politics. But you're too pathetic to support your own family without crawling to them for help." The venom in her voice when she attacks Knox reveals the person she's always been underneath the victim's performance. Several relatives look genuinely shocked, finally seeing the calculating manipulator who's been hidden behind tears and family loyalty speeches. But the moment that changes everything comes from an unexpected source. Indy, tired of adult drama she doesn't understand, asks the question that exposes the truth Senna has worked so hard to hide. "Mommy, why did you tell people they could sleep in Aunt Aurelia's special bed and pay you money for it?" The innocent inquiry hangs in the air like evidence no adult argument can dismiss. An 8-year-old child describing commercial operations her mother has been denying for months, reducing complex legal disputes to simple truths that even the most loyal relatives can't ignore. Uncle Marcus and Aunt Ruby exchange glances that say everything about their shifting perspective. Cousin Rebecca pulls out her phone and starts taking notes. Even Dad looks uncomfortable as the reality of systematic fraud becomes impossible to deny. Senna tries damage control, claiming Indy is confused and repeating things she doesn't understand. But the child's matter-of-fact description of guest rotations, money counting, and being displaced from their own bedrooms to accommodate paying strangers creates a picture that no amount of spin can alter. The intervention ends not with family unity, but with clear divisions between relatives who value evidence and those who prefer comfortable lies. As people file out to their cars, the conversations split along predictable lines, some still defending Senna's right to survival by any means necessary, others finally acknowledging that theft doesn't become acceptable just because it's committed by family. I stand in the driveway watching my childhood family structure fracture along lines of truth versus loyalty, knowing that some relationships will never recover from this moment of forced honesty. But for the first time since this began, I feel the quiet strength that comes from standing on solid ground, even when everyone else insists you're the one who's wrong. 2 days until eviction, and the truth has finally found its voice in the most innocent possible messenger. October 25th dawns gray and humid, the kind of Texas morning that feels heavy with the weight of unfinished business. I arrive at the lake house at 9 a.m. to find a circus already in progress. The Travis County Constable's white patrol car sits in my driveway next to a moving truck that Senna has rented for maximum dramatic effect. Mrs. Rivera stands in her front yard with several other neighbors drawn by the commotion, but trying to appear like they're just checking their mailboxes or watering plants. Word has spread through the lakeside community about today's eviction, and the audience gives Senna exactly what she craves most: witnesses to her victimhood. The constable, a middle-aged woman named Officer Chen, approaches me with paperwork and professional sympathy. "Ma'am, I have the court order for possession of the property. The tenants have been notified and should be ready to vacate by 10 a.m. Senna emerges from the house at that exact moment, timing her entrance like she's walking onto a stage. She's dressed in her most maternal outfit, flowing cardigan and worn jeans that suggest struggle without appearing actually poor. The children follow behind her, Indy clutching a raggedy stuffed animal, while River drags a small suitcase that's clearly been positioned for maximum pathos. Behind them, Knox carries boxes with exaggerated effort, his shoulders slumped in the posture of a defeated man. The entire family moves with choreographed precision, each gesture calculated to communicate loss, displacement, and the cruelty of legal systems that prioritize property rights over human compassion. Uncle Marcus and Cousin Jennifer have positioned themselves strategically around the property, both filming with their phones, but capturing very different narratives. Marcus focuses on the children's sad faces and Senna's tears, building evidence for the family loyalty faction. Jennifer documents the moving truck's contents, noting expensive items that contradict months of poverty claims. As Senna loads her belongings, I notice she's packed things that belong to me. The vintage landscape paintings from my master bedroom, the handcrafted ceramic vase that took me 3 antique shops to find, even the custom throw pillows I had made specifically for the living room's color scheme. She carries each item past me with defiant ownership, daring me to challenge her in front of the watching crowd. Knox makes multiple trips to the truck, his movements mechanical and ashamed. During one pass, he stops beside me and whispers an apology so quiet only I can hear. "I'm sorry for all of this. The gambling, the lies, letting her use the kids like this. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know." His words carry genuine remorse, but they're 4 months too late and delivered at the worst possible moment. Senna notices our brief interaction and immediately turns it into content for her ongoing victim narrative. Even now he's trying to turn my own husband against me, she announces loudly enough for everyone to hear. That's how toxic people operate. They divide families and then act innocent when everything falls apart. The performance continues for 90 minutes, each box carried with theatrical difficulty, every piece of furniture loaded with sighs and visible strain, designed to communicate how overwhelming this displacement feels for a struggling family with small children. But Senna saves her biggest moment for last. As Officer Chen prepares to hand over the final paperwork that officially transfers possession back to me, Senna positions herself directly in front of the constable with Indy and River flanking her like tiny bodyguards. The constable extends the court documents toward Senna, explaining that this is formal notice that the eviction has been completed and she must leave the premises immediately. That's when Senna loses all pretense of control and reveals the person she's been hiding behind months of careful victim performance. Blood over money, she screams, her voice carrying across the lake with shocking intensity. That's what you're choosing, Aurelia. You're picking dollars over your own flesh and blood. You're destroying this entire family for money. The words echo off the water while neighbors openly stare and multiple phones capture every second of her meltdown. But she's not finished. The performance builds to crescendo as she continues shrieking about family loyalty, corporate greed, and the heartlessness of successful women who forget where they came from. You think because you're rich that makes you better than us. You think your precious property is worth more than your sister's children having a roof over their heads. This family will never forget what you chose today. Indy starts crying, not from coaching this time, but from genuine fear at her mother's explosive rage. River hides behind Knox, who looks like he wants to disappear into the ground rather than be associated with this public breakdown. I stand perfectly still during the entire tirade, letting Senna reveal herself completely to the audience she insisted on having. Every accusation, every guilt trip, every manipulation tactic she's used privately for months now gets displayed publicly for neighbors, family, and social media followers to witness. When she finally runs out of steam, breathing hard from the exertion of performing such intense victimhood, I respond with the calm dignity I've learned from months of dealing with her manipulations. I'm choosing honesty and respect over being stolen from and lied to by family, I say clearly, my voice carrying to every witness she's assembled. I'm choosing to protect what I've worked for, instead of enabling someone who treats generosity as an opportunity for exploitation. The words hang in the humid air while Senna stares at me with undisguised hatred. For just a moment, her mask slips completely, and everyone watching sees the calculating person who's been hidden behind tears and family loyalty speeches. Knox gently guides the children toward the moving truck, while Senna continues glaring at me like I've personally destroyed her life, rather than simply refusing to be her victim indefinitely. Several family members approach her with comfort and support, but their expressions show confusion about the intensity of her public breakdown. Officer Chen completes the paperwork transfer with professional efficiency, handing me the keys to my own property, like I'm being given back something that was stolen, which technically I am. As the moving truck pulls out of my driveway, followed by cars full of relatives who'll spend the next several hours analyzing every moment of what they just witnessed, I stand alone on the deck of my lake house for the first time in 4 months. The silence feels strange after months of noise, chaos, and drama. Mrs. Rivera approaches with a gentle smile and a plate of homemade cookies, her way of welcoming me back to my own property. "You did the right thing, dear," she says simply. "That girl needed to learn that family doesn't mean you get to take whatever you want without consequences." I walk through the empty house, seeing damage that was hidden by furniture and personal belongings. Stains on walls where pictures hung, scratches on floors from constant furniture rearrangement, missing light fixtures that apparently got packed with Senna's belongings. But underneath the damage and theft, I can still see the bones of what this place was meant to be. My sanctuary, my investment, my refuge from the demands of business and family expectations. The place where I plan to watch sunsets and build the kind of peace that can only come from knowing you own something outright, something nobody can take away or demand you share. The afternoon sun slants through windows that need cleaning, illuminating dust motes that dance like possibilities in the space Senna finally vacated. For the first time since July, I'm alone in my own house, surrounded by damage that can be repaired and silence that feels like victory. Tomorrow I'll start the restoration process, bringing in contractors and designers to undo months of systematic destruction. But today, I simply sit on my deck watching the lake reflect clouds that look like freedom, knowing I've finally learned the difference between family love and family exploitation. The water laps gently against my private dock, the sound mixing with distant laughter from neighbors who don't have to perform their happiness for social media audiences or justify their right to peace in their own homes. 6 months later, I stand in the fully renovated lake house, watching March sunlight dance across new hardwood floors and reflect off the completely rebuilt marble countertop. The restoration took 3 months and $32,000, but the house has emerged stronger and more beautiful than it was before Senna's destructive occupation. The insurance settlement covered most of the damage costs, and the civil lawsuit against Senna resulted in a judgment that will probably never be fully paid, but established legal precedent for what happened here. More importantly, the process forced me to document exactly how systematic the exploitation had been, creating a paper trail that even the most family-loyal relatives couldn't dismiss. Knox completed his gambling rehabilitation program and left Senna 2 months after the eviction. He sends me updates, occasionally careful messages that focus on his recovery and his efforts to rebuild a relationship with Indy and River outside their mother's influence. The children visit me once a month now, supervised sessions, where we're slowly repairing the damage done by months of coaching them to see me as the villain in their family story. During their last visit, Indy asked why Mommy told them I was mean when I was actually just trying to protect my house. The question broke my heart and gave me hope, simultaneously evidence that children can recover from manipulation if given enough truth and time. Senna moved in with cousin Marcus in Dallas, bringing her victim narrative and financial problems to a new audience. Her social media following collapsed completely once the legal proceedings revealed the full scope of her fraud, and the brand partnerships she'd built on false authenticity disappeared along with her credibility. The family remains split along predictable lines. Mom and Dad maintain icy distance, convinced I chose business over blood, regardless of evidence about theft and systematic deception. Uncle Marcus and Aunt Ruby fell for Senna's relocation sob story and are apparently discovering firsthand what it means to house someone who treats generosity as weakness. But Nana Vesper apologized formally and completely admitting she'd been manipulated by Senna's performance until she saw the property damage with her own eyes. We have dinner every month now, conversations that focus on building new relationships based on mutual respect rather than family obligation. Cousin Jennifer became an unexpected ally, documenting the entire legal process and sharing it with relatives who preferred comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. Her research revealed that Senna had attempted similar schemes with other family members over the years, always on a smaller scale, but following the same pattern of manufactured crisis, followed by guilt-based manipulation. The business recovered more quickly than I'd expected. Austin's real estate community rallied around me once the truth came out, and several new investment opportunities arose from connections who respected how I'd handled the family crisis without compromising my professional integrity. Breyer's divorce finalized successfully, inspired partly by watching me set boundaries that seemed impossible until they became necessary. She credits our friendship with teaching her that love shouldn't require accepting mistreatment, whether from family or romantic partners. Phoenix Shaw, the attorney who helped Sage with some of the more complex legal documentation, started calling for reasons that had nothing to do with property law. Our relationship developed, slowly built on shared values about honesty, respect, and the importance of maintaining boundaries, even when people claim love should eliminate all limits. Most surprisingly, the lake house has become everything I originally envisioned, and more. The renovation included updates that make it perfect for both personal retreat and occasional luxury rental, generating $8,000 per month when I choose to rent it, and providing sanctuary when I need space to think and breathe. This afternoon, I'm hosting a small housewarming party for the friends and colleagues who supported me through the worst family crisis of my adult life. The guest list includes people who chose facts over fiction, evidence over emotion, and respect over the kind of loyalty that enables abuse. Mrs. Rivera brings her famous chocolate cake and stories about the new neighbors who moved into the rental house down the shore, a quiet, retired couple who read books on their deck and never have more than 2 cars in their driveway. Phoenix contributes wine that actually belongs in my rebuilt collection bottles, selected for quality rather than Instagram-worthy labels. Breyer arrives with a housewarming gift that makes me laugh and cry simultaneously, a custom doormat that reads, "Home Sweet Honest Home." The message is subtle enough for most visitors to miss, but clear enough to remind me daily that truth is the foundation everything else gets built on. As we toast the renovation completion and new beginnings, I reflect on lessons that cost $32,000 and 4 months of family warfare to learn. The difference between love and enabling. The importance of boundaries that protect what you've built instead of sacrificing it to people who mistake generosity for weakness. The reality that some relationships can't survive honesty, and that's information rather than tragedy. The conversation flows around topics that matter, business opportunities that align with personal values, travel plans that don't require anyone's permission, investments in experiences that create actual joy rather than social media content designed to inspire envy. Phoenix asks about my long-term plans for the property, and I explain my vision of eventually retiring here, writing the book. I've always talked about starting, maybe hosting small retreats for women entrepreneurs who need space to think without family or social expectations defining their choices. The sun sets over Lake Travis while we talk about futures built on solid foundations rather than shifting family politics. The water reflects colors that change by the minute, natural beauty that exists, whether anyone photographs it or not, peace that doesn't require performance or justification. As guests begin leaving around 9, exchanging hugs and promises to get together soon, I realize this is what home is supposed to feel like. Not just a place you own, but a space where you can be completely yourself without apologizing for success, explaining boundaries, or justifying decisions that protect your well-being. I clean up the minimal party mess while reflecting on the strangest possible outcome of family betrayal, discovering who I am when I stop trying to be who other people need me to be. The woman who emerged from this crisis is stronger, clearer, and infinitely more discerning about the difference between people who add value to life and those who extract it. The lake house settles into evening quiet, my sanctuary restored and protected by legal boundaries that can't be manipulated away with tears or family loyalty speeches. Tomorrow, I'll wake up to coffee and sunrise without checking my phone for family drama or guilt trips designed to make me question my right to peace in my own home. Tonight, I fall asleep in my own bed in my own house that belongs entirely to me, surrounded by silence that sounds like freedom and dreams that belong to nobody else. Was Aurelia right to choose business principles over family loyalty, or should blood always come first? How would you handle a family member who exploited your generosity while playing the victim publicly? Share your thoughts about setting boundaries with toxic relatives who use children as emotional weapons and social media manipulation.